All right, so we're given an inequality here. Y is less than -2, and we're asked to graph that. Um, so I'm trying to figure out where to start here. Let's start with pretend like this was an equal sign. If you had y equals -2, what would that line look like? So we know it goes through the y-axis at -2, and that's the only y value that it goes through. So when you have an inequality or an equation like this where it's y is, I'm just going to say equals, y equals some number, that's always a horizontal line. So the graph of this is a horizontal line because it can only go through -2 on the y-axis. All right, so it's just like this. If this was an X here, then that would graph as a vertical line going through the X axis at that point. Okay, so we know it's either A or B because those are both horizontal lines. And then there's two other things we need to look at with inequalities. So let me write this down for you. So with inequalities, if the inequality symbol is less than or greater than, then you're going to graph it using a dashed line. And if the symbol has an or equal to sign underneath it, then you're going to graph that as a solid line. All right. So if we look at these two graphs, we should have one with a dash line, and they actually both have a dash line. Okay. So that doesn't help us out, but you need to be aware of that when you're graphing inequalities. So the next piece and the last piece is the shading. And you can see that A is shaded below the line and B is shaded above the line. So how do we figure out which side to shade? Well, what you do is take a point. You can take any point on the graph and plug it in to the inequality and see if it makes a true statement or not. The easiest point typically to plug in is 0, 0. So if I plug in 0 for y, I'll get 0 is less than -2. Is that true or not? Is 0 less than -2? No, that's not true. So 0, 0 is not a point. It is not a solution to this inequality. So since it's not a solution, that means you would shade on the other side of the line, which is over here. So again, let me just re-say what I just did. To check which side to shade on, plug a point into your inequality, or if it was an equation, you would do it the same way. Actually, you wouldn't do this with an equation. I take that back. So you plug in a point. 0, 0 is a good point to plug in. So I plug in 0 for y. I get 0 is less than -2. That's not true. So that is not a solution to the inequality. So that means all the solutions are on the other side. All right. So remember, solid line, dash line, and make sure you know what the graph of this looks like. All right. So keep working hard and you will master the math.